Music Matters. I'm Dante Pellegrino from AboveTheBridgeMusic.com, and today I'm lucky enough to be joined with one half of Carpool Tunnel. How you guys doing?
Doing great.
Thanks for
Dylan,
joining me. I'm excited for this conversation, guys. I appreciate you joining me.
No worries. Pleasure's ours.
anytime.
All right. How have the last couple of weeks been for you guys? I imagine you're on top of the world right now. The debut's out. How's everything been rolling for the past couple of weeks?
It's been it's kind of like anticlimactic. I think it's a little weird to, be releasing music during this time. I mean, we'd usually be on the road right now and playing shows and seeing, fans and friends. And so it's been I don't know, it's been a tough battle. Like, we're super excited to be releasing this music and we're so happy it's out, but it's also like a tough struggle of not being able to like do the things that we love as well. So
I get it. Has that been hard? Like, I feel like, especially with how long this album was brewing, did it almost feel like it was all that work went into it and you were expecting some big moment, but then that moment never really came?
I don't know. It's tough. When our album came out, we were like all together, which was still nice. And we had like a live session that we came out with, so it still kind of felt like we had like a show, and like we were able to like celebrate with like our close friends and our family, and like really close fans that we've known over the years. And I think we just made the best of it.
I get it, man. The live session was great. I watched it. That was pretty awesome. Where'd you record that at?
So we recorded that at a house actually down in Santa Cruz. Brad's parents' house. They were nice enough to just kind of like let us use it for the weekend. So we moved all the furniture out of the way, and Michael, our film guy, like he basically like just set up like all his equipment and filmed us. And we had like been practicing and like preparing that for like probably a month or so, and kind of figuring out like where we wanted to do it, and a couple places fell through, but we just made the best of what we had. And I think it came out really, really great. So
Like a supplemental album release show, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Michael. I met Michael through because I'm good friends with Lance, the artist that he manages. So
Yeah.
so that's part of the connection, how I knew you guys. One thing I wanted to ask you about the album. Tell me about the text on the album, the "You Will Bloom" text. What was the origin of that? Where'd that come from?
yeah, so that actually was something I just wrote inside my journal actually when we first moved in to our house together in San Francisco. So about a year after we met as a band, we just kind of decided to like pack all our things and like find a place in San Francisco together. And we moved into like this kind of like small 1,000 square foot house. And we were kind of just crammed. Like Spencer and I shared a room, and then
We had
like
a
Brad also shared a room with Brad's brother at the time. So there was three of them in the other room.
yeah, we
Um,
were in bunk beds. I was the bottom bunk and he was the top bunk. So it was like the entire time we had a studio downstairs, and it was just like right above the studio where we had the drums and amps and everything that we would like write with. It was just upstairs. It's just like our bunk beds and then like their bunk bed on their side. And it's just like it was like a dorm. It was like a dorm. It was like living in a dorm in a San Francisco house. It was crazy.
That's so
but
funny.
yeah, then I feel like probably 2 or 3 months after we moved in there, I just kind of like wrote that, like kind of what's on the vinyl in my journal. And I kind of shared it with them, and they were like, this is so cool. Like, we could almost use this as the idea for the album. And then we just kind of formulated from there. And then when we decided to actually like put all the lyrics and stuff on the record, we decided to also put that like journal entry on there because we felt like it really like summarized exactly what we wanted the album to be about.
So that wasn't planned at all. It just came out of something that you wrote.
Mm-hmm.
That's so interesting to me. It's so like spontaneous too. I was looking at I don't have the vinyl, but I was looking at a video of it, and I saw the all the liner notes. That's all from your journal as well, right?
Yes.
Do you write all your music just like on paper like that? Because I feel like a lot of people now just like to write in their notes or whatever, but I feel like there's a lost art of actually putting pen to paper. To me, it feels like it might make it more authentic.
I do do it for most songs, but honestly, I don't do it enough. Like sometimes we'll write music and I'll just kind of have like the lyrics kind of all in my head. Like even for like we're writing new music right now, and I haven't really written down a lot of the lyrics for stuff. Like there's certain songs where like I think it's like when we start to write a song, I don't really write it on paper initially, but then like when I'm really trying to get to the nitty gritty stuff, and I really just like trying to like figure out the exact lyrics that I want to be on the record, especially when we went into the studio too for the first record. That was when I definitely started writing it down on paper a lot more, especially like a lot of the things that are on the vinyl, like those are the lyrics that I wrote down in the studio when we like officiated everything.
Yeah.
When you guys go into a session to write, do you usually go into it with an instrumental first or with lyrics first?
Instrumental first.
Yeah.
I mean, you just write on top of it.
Yeah, sometimes both. We've definitely like had songs where like, you know, one of us came with lyric ideas and like a little bit of, you know, here's a chord progression, and like brought it to practice. And like that's kind of like how our writing style is like we kind of just bring a little bit of something of the song to practice, and then we just work it out there and jam it out.
Yeah, that makes sense. But it's also interesting to me because so many of the themes on the record seem very like cohesive. Like a lot of them tend to follow almost like a coming of age type story. So it's strange to think that, was that more intentional, or were you just kind of writing your truth on it?
I would say it was pretty intentional.
Mm.
Especially like when going back to like that the journal entry that you were talking about, the Like a Flower You Too Shall Bloom, like that was kind of like written when maybe we had like 3 or 4 songs maybe written off the record. And then when we had the idea from that, I think that's when like the other like 6 songs came about, you know?
Mm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The album cover, where'd that picture come from? Where's that?
Spencer, you want to tell him?
That was a trip for me. I remember I was asleep, and I remember we had just finished playing a show, I think in Colorado or Salt Lake City, but those are the salt flats in Utah. And the picture is us out in front of the van, and I had just woken up, so I woke up just to see us in the middle of nowhere, right? Put my shoes on, stepped out of the car. I'm still putting my belt like looping my belt in, and then the picture was taken, and I'm like still half asleep, and then I went back to bed as soon as we were done.
It's just that van life.
Yeah, that was like the like last half of the last tour we went on last summer last fall before COVID hit.
Was the last tour you guys were on, was that the one with the Grins, or was that before?
I think technically
yeah,
definitely was. We actually started the first leg of that with a band called Fashion Jackson, our good friends from San Diego, and a band called
yeah.
And then we finished the last leg of that with the Grins, and we like basically met up with them in like Colorado, I think.
Yeah.
Just like in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Safeway parking lot.
It's like, hey guys, we'll meet halfway. Do you remember, like, I'd be curious to know, is there an ingrained memory in your mind of like the last show you played? Like do you have like a moment where you're like, oh, this was the moment before everything went to shit, like with COVID and stuff?
Yes. Yeah. We well, there was 2 shows, wasn't there? There was one that Carpool played, and then one that the Chonies played. Which one should I dive into?
Well, I would say like I wouldn't say to kind of give like a background of that, like we had a show with the Red Pears in Reno, was like our last official show as Carpool Tunnel before things went down, but then we had a show booked in San Francisco, so we couldn't play as Carpool Tunnel, but we got asked to play at a show in the Honey Hive in the Sunset District at SF, and so we made up a fake band name.
A fake Instagram.
And the only name you could have thought of was the Chonies.
We have a running gag character that like all of us kind of embody on from time to, yeah, there he is right there. That's Choni. That face. His little face right there. That's Choni.
Choni.
So like he's like a character that we've all kind of like created, and all of us kind of have like that we like use to like, I don't know, just have fun, and just like
It's the embodiment of all of you together.
kind of, yeah, it's the energy that all of us create when we're together. Choney comes out, and so we just decided that we'd be a band called the Chonies, and we play a show, and it was like just to our friends, with our friends, like hanging out in the Honey Hive in San Francisco. And
Wait,
then
so why couldn't you play? Just because at that time COVID hit everything when you were in Reno?
there's a
Well,
thing called a radius clause, and a radius clause is like, oh, if you're a Carpool Tunnel and you're playing in San Francisco like on Friday, and somebody's like, oh, can you play this show on Thursday? And they're like, well, no, you can't, because you have a show tomorrow. Well, if you're not that band, quote unquote, and you go to play this show Thursday, then the radius clause is like, it's like a loophole.
Oh, wait. So is that like a legality thing, or
Yeah,
why?
essentially.
Okay, I see. That makes sense.
Because they want people to come to the show that you're like actually going to play. They don't want
Oh,
people
yeah.
to go to another show and then not come to that show, because then they lose money.
So then the
Like,
Chonies was born.
yeah, the conflict of interest was there, but that was our last show, was not even as Carpool Tunnel.
What was the last show as Carpool Tunnel like? You said that was in Reno?
Oh, it was awesome. It was amazing. Red Pears are so sweet. They're awesome people. And then we went and played to pretty much, it was like a sold out Holland project. It was so fun.
Reno's always treated us like super well. And we love playing there.
What's your guys' favorite place to play? Would you say it's there?
There or in San Francisco. I mean, it's tough. It's tough to beat a local show.
Yeah.
Especially down in San Jose is actually where we started. So when we played shows down there, it's always been like, it's almost like a coming home show.
I get it.
Yeah.
It's been tough to watch all these local venues crash and burn. It's really hard to watch. It's sad.
Slims. It's gone.
Slims. That's terrible. Slims. But Bottom of the Hill's struggling a lot, aren't they? Gilman's struggling a lot. It's so sad. And it sucks too, because even outside of music, there's such like ingrained parts of Bay Area culture, which is really sad. I feel like a big part of your guys coming together too was you playing live. How has it been trying to deal with that, like not being able to play live?
Sad.
Yeah, it's definitely sad. It's just it's tough because that's like a huge part of also like how we write. Like I don't like, it's what we would like to do, like, on the weekends, like when we're not doing our regular life things, like we just want to be able to play shows all the time. So I think for the first like half of quarantine, I think how we dealt with it was just basically locking ourselves in the house and playing music nonstop and writing new music and kind of just trying to forget about it for the time being. Like, but it's there's a silver lining to it. I think like even for the past like 6 months, like we started like for the past 2 months, actually, we've been like practicing pretty nonstop, but we took like a good 4 or 5 months off actually, which we've never done as a band. Like we've just been going nonstop for like 3 years. So it was nice. Like Spencer got to go home to San Diego, spend time with his family. A lot of us, also spend time with our family and just like, also finding the other like time to do other things other than music, even though that is like what we love to do. Like that's all we want to do. But it's also important to have that other time to yourself. So
that makes sense. Was that a big part of the choice? Like when you made the decision to take that break, was it because, oh, this is the time that we'll have the chance to because of COVID?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just because you couldn't play live? How often were you guys playing live before COVID and everything? It was pretty often, huh?
Everything that came to us was an opportunity, and most of the time we took it.
If not every week, every other week we had a show.
Pretty much.
I think that's so smart to just take at that point at least, take everything that comes your way, because you never know what show you're going to meet somebody at. You never know when you're going to make connections and opportunities. And I'm not surprised to hear you say that, because every single local venue card I inevitably would see Carpool Tunnel on most of them. So
pretty much how it goes.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the story of how you guys formed in the first place and met in the first place, because I know a dumbed down version of the story, but I'd love to hear from the source, because in a lot of ways it doesn't seem real. Like it seems like it needs to be like a movie or a book. So
Yeah, so kind of like where it started was I had moved up to San Jose to go to San Jose State. And Brad, Danny, and I were living in San Jose, hadn't met each other, but somehow we basically got like the same ad pushed to us on Instagram for this app. And the app's called Vamper. It's like basically like a Tinder for musicians. And so we all downloaded it at the same time somehow, coincidentally. And I happened to swipe right on Danny. And I messaged him. I'm like, hey, you're a drummer. Like, that's so cool. Like, just moved up here. Like, would love to jam sometime. And then we decided to meet up, and like we realized we lived only like a couple blocks away. And I had just moved to San Jose, not knowing anybody. And so I met Danny in like a like a movie theater parking lot. We drove to like Santa Cruz. He brought his little drum pad, and I brought my acoustic guitar, and we jammed for a little bit on the beach. And then he was like, hey, like I also matched with this other guy named Brad. And he's a guitarist, and we should go meet up with him in his garage. And so we didn't really know how old he was, didn't really know much about him. We just kind of like went over to his house, and like we kind of just instantly clicked. Like I showed him like a couple songs I had been writing, and they both really liked it. And then basically like in a couple of weeks we had like recorded a song, had pitched it to Vamper, because we're like, hey, we met on this app, like we made this song. Let's see if you guys think it's cool. And so the CEO that made the app got back to us, connected us with like a producer down in LA to like go and record it. And then we went and did that. And that song is Afterlight, actually. So that's like one of the very first songs we ever released. And then like probably 2 months later, we're like, we also need a bassist. And so we went back to the app again, and like pretty much in a couple of days I met Spencer. Spencer came over to Brad's house. We clicked, and then he was, in a couple of weeks from then he was up in San Francisco, and we were playing our very first show in SF at the Honey Hive, which we've played like a ton of times now. It's one of our favorite venues in San Francisco. And kind of the rest is kind of history. We've just been now, best friends for like 4 years playing music. Just we're all like super passionate and have like the same mindset, and we just know this is like what we want to do with our lives.
how long after, when you guys originally all got together and played that show at Honey Hive, how long after did you realize that you wanted to take this seriously?
Gosh, I mean, Spencer had been playing in bands like basically his whole life. I had only been in like one band previously, and Brad had been in a ton of bands. Also, Danny had played in a couple of bands too before. I think we basically, like, when we all met, I feel like we all knew that we wanted to take it serious and take it this far. And I think it's just the fact that all four of us had that mindset that has allowed us to get as far as we've gotten now, because we just all kind of believe in ourselves, and we just love making music together. So I think being able to find like-minded musicians that have like the same ambition and like passion towards music is like a really important thing to be able to find. And I'm just lucky to be able to have met these guys,
That's so incredible, because that's always how bands end up not working. It's like if you have a band of 5 people, 3 of them are taking it super seriously and 2 aren't. So I totally see how that app, like I get the idea behind it, but it's so interesting that it actually worked. Are you still in contact with the CEO at all?
Mm-hmm.
You still talk to him?
It's been a while, but we were in good contact with him, especially when we first contacted them and reached out to him. So we still have like his phone number in our phones, So he's a really down to earth guy. He's from Australia and has played in another band. I'm just forgetting the name of the band right now, but you probably look that up.
Do you know if there's any other bands that are like have a following that met on that app?
I haven't heard of any other ones.
You guys are the success story.
I'm sure there are.
It's good, yeah.
I just don't know. They haven't really connected us with each other per se.
That would be cool. Imagine a show of all the bands that met on me.
I've been waiting for that, like the Vamper sponsored like concert series. That'd be
Do a
sick.
festival.
Yeah.
That'd be crazy. All right, walk me through the intro to the album, Learning to Listen. Lyrically, that song, I feel like it sets a lot of tones for the tracks that follow it. If you don't mind, which one of you guys wrote those lyrics?
I wrote those lyrics. Pretty much in like pretty much kind of on the off the top of my head too.
Like one spot, one time through.
Yeah. I that was also an example of a song I never really like wrote the lyrics down. So like I had really sat with the music for a while. But speaking of the house that we all lived in, like we had a little like converted studio downstairs. And Brad just like started playing those chords and I just happened to like sing that over it. Kind of like keeping the thought of what Bloom is about and like kind of like that, like a flower you two shall bloom. I just kind of like, I wanted to write a song about like listening and like just paying attention to like what other people are saying and the world around you and like being really in tune with that. And I think that's a huge like theme of coming of age is like being able to learn that and not be necessarily completely like into yourself, but like also worrying about others. And it's we connected the idea of it to flowers. So like the lyrics are about like almost like learning this from a flower, and a flower is actually like talking to you. So I don't know, it's kind of like it's just one of those songs that just came to be. And we just decided to put it as our first like opening song on the album because I feel like it really just like captures like the essence of what the album is about.
I totally agree with you in the sense that that's such an important part of growing up. I feel like it's a very vital part of having your ego kind of diminish from you and have your ego degrade from your body and yourself is learning to listen to other people.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like that was something you went through individually as you kind of grew up?
I would say 100% for myself. I don't know about speak on behalf of everyone else, but yeah, that's definitely something I started to learn, especially when I moved out of the house. And I grew up in a pretty small town, so just kind of opening my eyes to the world, and getting different perspectives, I think is extremely important. And I think it's super relevant for the times we're living in right now too.
Yeah, I think that like taking a step back and like seeing others' perspectives and listening to them and internalizing them, but also like not treating them as fact and like being skeptic and thinking for yourself at the same time is like bringing your ego down and then building it back up like in your most like positive sense of self.
I couldn't agree more. I feel like it's a balance of the two things. I feel like in a lot of ways it's listening to people and just not just deciding what you feel about what they're saying, but genuinely listening. And that's hard. That's hard. There's a big difference from listening to what somebody's saying and having it go in one ear and out the other one, and then actually internalizing what they say and thinking on it and letting it marinate in your thoughts and then putting your own spin and your own ideas into effect on it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a part. I totally can see how that would be a very important part of Bloom in general. And I totally see how the flower analogy works. When you came up with the concept for Bloom, or at least the loose concept that it follows, was the flower analogy first, or was the idea of the coming to age and learning about yourself first?
I would say the coming of age first. I think the flower like also kind of came to be because we had moved into San Francisco. We had like a really nice backyard and we had beautiful flowers out in that yard. And they were like just there when we moved in. And I spent a lot of time like outside in the backyard, like writing and, playing music and like just kind of processing what we wanted the album to be about. And I think that's like kind of what inspired it also. Like there's a ton of like, the greatest thing I love about living in San Francisco is that despite it being a city, there's like tons of nature around us. Whether or not it's just like somebody growing flowers in front of their house or going to Golden Gate Park, there's just like so many beautiful plants around us. And I think like us writing the songs at the same time, realizing that we kind of want to write a coming of age album, kind of just tied in with like our surroundings.
Do you think San Francisco played a huge part in your artistry opposed to when you lived in San Jose?
Oh, big time.
Mm-hmm.
Huge influence. I don't even think that we would be the same band had we not done it.
Why do you think that is? Like, what do you think about the city? What about the city do you think brings that out of you?
Well, I think that there's a certain level of like your environment affects you, like literally the things that come into your senses and come out. Like if you see beauty, you breathe in and exhale the same energy. Like your mental space is really attached and connected to the things in your environment. So if you're in a city like San Jose, where let's say you're in like a downtown area of San Jose where you feel like you're cramped and cluttered, and in like, you know, a neighborhood, it's like you don't feel like you're in that same mental space as if you're in San Francisco, where you're like amongst like just a massive gorgeous landscape and nature, and like all these things kind of coexisting in one environment, walks of life, people like from all walks of life, just all in one place. Like it really like pulls you out of your like your old mental space and lets you see what the world could be. Like it's like this is the forefront of human civilization, and like you're able to like take that and breathe that in and like breathe out that same positive energy.
I think that's such a good point. What you were saying about just had the influx of the amount of different people that live in San Francisco, that's always been like fascinating to me. It's like the Tenderloin versus like the financial district versus like Golden Gate Park. Those seem like they're different cities. So
Yeah,
it's to
exactly.
have them rolled up into one. I can only imagine how the ideas that would come out of that.
Mm-hmm. It's like you can have every single part of like life in one city and have it all kind of coexist at the same time, which I think is really, really special.
And do you think San Jose didn't have that? Was there a lack of that?
Um,
I wouldn't say there's a lack, but it was like it's just different.
Yeah.
It's also we were kind of like in a different headspace in San Jose. You know, we had just met, not necessarily like quite as comfortable with each other and didn't understand each other as much. You know, like we were just still kind of getting to know each other. And you know, we were just kind of like I was very busy with school. Spencer was going to school. Like we were busy doing that, and I think like San Francisco gave us a little bit more time off and more time to focus on music, especially like being in the same roof under, you know, with each other. So
Ben, where do you live before you lived in San Jose? Like before you went to college there?
I grew up in like kind of like Ventura, Santa Barbara area, like the Central Coast.
Okay.
But I actually grew up in like a really small town called San Ynez. It's actually like kind of a pretty conservative town too. So it was weird coming out of that, and then like I wanted to leave really bad. A lot of people kind of get stuck in small towns, and you know, work the same job for a really long time and get stuck there their whole lives, and that's something I didn't want to happen to myself. So
I get that. So is that more in SoCal where that is?
mm-hmm.
Do you guys think living in California, a bit more northern in the Bay Area, do you think that there's any detriment that comes to that opposed to living in LA?
It's you minimize that factor that is the by chance do two paths meet. Like in LA, you can just be out there doing something and all of a sudden it's just like, whoop, you've met this person who can unlock these doors for you, and like they're all interconnected in a very special way, like an industry way down in LA. That's not so much the case in San Francisco, but that doesn't mean that there isn't. And the fact that there isn't means that there's you know, a structure that needs to be built that, you know, the city lacks what LA has, and can be changed around, you know, and you can build it.
That's an
Plus, I
interesting
feel
way of
like
looking at it.
yeah, I feel like LA is a little bit more competitive when it comes to music. Just from like my experience of like playing down there versus like playing in San Francisco, I just feel like I don't know. There's something about the San Francisco music scene that just feels like a warm hug. Like everybody just loves each other. It's very interconnected, and like, like everyone kind of like, you'll go to shows, and if you're like listening, especially like the indie rock scene in San Francisco, like you tend to see like all the same people at the same shows, despite how big the city is. And I'm sure that happens in LA, but it's a lot more widespread. So I feel like being so close together in San Francisco really creates that environment.
To me, it seems like I don't know if the music industry is there yet, but it seems like entertainment is more or less starting to decentralize itself. It seems like as a byproduct of COVID, we've realized that we can do things online. So I feel like people are going to begin to realize they don't have to be connected to this web that is Los Angeles. And I feel like you guys living in the city is, it's a very good example of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. On the record, one thing I noticed that I found really interesting, and I had a lot of questions after I heard it. So the very first thing you hear on the record is it's either a hand drum or a bongo, I think. It's also the very last thing that you hear on the record. Is there any connection to that? Like, is that specific reason?
I'm so glad you realized that. You're actually the first person to even ask about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we actually did that completely intentional.
Oh, cool.
I got this drum. It's a little hand drum, and I got it in the mail when I was like a senior in high school, randomly, from overseas. And I have no idea who sent it to me, like even to this day. But it's been in like my possession since, and I showed it to everybody in the band. I was like, hey, I got this drum, like, and I told them the story about it. And I think it was Danny. Danny was like, dude, we got to have that on the record. Like, we should play it. And so it was like his idea to like have that be the very first thing you hear and like the last thing you hear, almost kind of like as like our little luck charm. Yeah.
That's so fascinating. You have no idea where it came from? It just came in the mail?
Yeah.
That's so interesting to me.
To Ben Koppenjan, no from.
That's so strange. Was there a name? Like, did it have a name?
I mean, it just has my name on it. It said the drum has Jerusalem written on it. And it has like a camel and stuff on it. It has like paintings and stuff. It's like a really cool looking drum. But I think it's like very fitting to like how we met as a band, and
I was just gonna say that
everything that happens in our life is just like very spontaneous and random. And I think that's why it's so fitting to have it on the record too. Yeah.
If there was a bet to make in any category, I would just bet on Carpool Tunnel, because you guys seem to have the luckiest, like the odds that one, you would be on an app like that, and then two, you'd get a random bongo in the mail that you decide to put on your record. How does that happen?
Stars align.
The stars do that's so no. I feel like there's people and the stars just align with them, and I feel like you guys are some of those people. No, that's so funny to me, because I heard it and I was like, all right, if it was in the beginning, maybe it wasn't just intentional, and then at the end I heard it too, and I was like, all right, if it's how I perceived it at first actually was this was totally me. Obviously I was just attributing something to it that I knew nothing about, but I heard it and I was like, maybe it has something to do with something going full circle, in the way that you guys are talking about the bloom metaphor and the flower metaphor. I figured it might have something to do with the fact that, I don't know, something about going full circle. I didn't flesh out the thought yet, but.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that also goes with like why we wanted to do it too. We wanted the album to just kind of start and end the same way. So it was like this constant loop that you could listen to, especially if you just like were able to loop it on Spotify, like it would sound like starting the record over again even at the end. So
that's exactly how I figured it out. What does a normal Carpool Tunnel show look like? What are your guys' favorite aspects of performing live?
Oh, I had a good analogy for what a Carpool Tunnel show is like, but I called it in another interview we did. I called it an emotional roller coaster. It's like you're in line, you're waiting for the show and everything, and like you see all your friends and all your family, and like all the people who you love, and like you're like in a family, like getting ready to go on the ride, and then all of a sudden the lights come down and it's like you're coming up the roller coaster, and all of a sudden you're just down, and then you're in the roller coaster, and like it's just like you have that like excitement, and you have all those other emotions that come with it, and like certain songs will pull out certain things from a crowd, where sometimes it'll be very moshy and very very fun and chaotic, and other times it'll be like right in the feels, and it's just ups and downs.
I can really see your guys' passion for performing live.
Yeah.
Do you have any tours planned for the record after COVID, or are you just kind of taking it by ear, going to see what happens?
In the works.
In the works. Can't say.
Nothing confirmed yet, but yeah, we're planning on it.
Yeah.
So.
Didn't you guys plan to release this record a good amount longer, or a good amount sooner before you actually released it? Was that due to COVID?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what did COVID push back for you? Just the release in general?
And yeah, canceled a lot of shows that we had and tours that we were gonna do, and like stuff we already had booked. Like we were working on planning a full US tour, and this was even before we had like the label or management or any sort of people working with us to plan anything. Like we had our own plan. We were going to do it all DIY and like make it happen. And then COVID hit, and all these things got dropped, and all of a sudden it was like everything we had going for us was just like uprooted. And then we came and into contact with Pure Noise, and then came into contact with our management company, and now we're working backwards from where we were.
Was that a big change when you guys got in contact with your label and your management company? Was going from doing everything DIY to kind of having stuff more centralized and having a lot more help, was that a big change for you? Like, did that give you a lot more time to focus on music?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it wasn't like, I wouldn't necessarily say it was like a big change. It was more because it wasn't really sudden either. It was very gradual. Like over like the whole quarantine, like we basically had been talking to the label, figuring things out, and and then once we kind of like got them on our team, I think that's when we were able to actually set a date for when we wanted to release the album, and because we didn't really anticipate how long we were going to be in quarantine too. So I think a lot of like the biggest reason why we kind of just kept delaying it is because we were hoping, like maybe 2-3 months down the line we can release this and play shows again. Because that's the biggest thing we wanted to be able to do, is be able to play music after we had already released the album, and be able to play live shows again. But didn't really come our way. But and I think in looking back at it, like I think now that we released the record now, I think it's like it makes the most sense. And the music's like really like developed. Like even when we wrote it like a year or two ago, like I don't think we realized how impactful the lyrics would be to like our current time. And they just developed into such a beautiful thing. And there's like like Empty Faces has a lot of lines like, has it really been a year? And we wrote that before like any of these things happened. So it's just crazy to think like how we wrote a song and then it ended up having that much more meaning, and the meaning changed over time. So
that's so funny you bring that up. I was going to ask you that. I didn't, because I was looking at like, I was trying to piece together in my head when could Empty Faces have been written, and I was like, well, it had to be before COVID, and that blew my mind too. It was like that specific line that was so strange to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's another instance of your guys' stars aligning.
Yep.
It's just it seems to be that the more you let go of like control, like the more things just kind of happen, and it just kind of like, I know Ben's like a beautiful example of this, is that when we're writing songs and the music is happening around us, like Ben will just attack it with whatever is in his head and whatever melody strikes him as it in the moment. And it's letting go of like everything and doing that is one of the most difficult things, I think. So I commend you, Ben, for doing that, because I can't. I have this weight on me that doesn't allow me to do it, that I'm learning how to get past. And you've already gotten past it. That like letting go and just like letting the flow go and like letting it take you wherever your mind's gonna go. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's that kind of a thing that allows for those kinds of instances to happen. It's like when you let go, has it really been a year, just came out when we were playing the song, and it was just like, yeah, that fits. That's the mood.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a little bit? Do you feel like you have a tendency to calculate stuff more? Is that what you mean? Opposed to like where you're saying Ben can just be spontaneous and jump right into a track?
Yeah, I mean, Ben and I are two sides of the same coin, where like Ben, you really let go of a lot of things, and you're very, very like go with the flow. Meanwhile, I'm more of like the right side, like right brain, like methodical, logical, like fix it, make it happen kind of guy, where like if shit breaks, like this pedal is broken, so this is Ben's broken pedal, and it doesn't make any sound, like when or it just goes crazy, like, but like I'll fix it because I'm the right brain methodical, like I'll fix the problem to make it work. But Ben's very like, like go with the flow. If the pedal stops working, the pedal stops working.
That was an extremely convenient physical analogy that you just had expertly placed there.
Yeah, but it's like we fill in the holes in each other's minds, like music happens whether or not you are the one who's writing all the parts or writing this or writing that. Like music just kind of happens. And like when you have all the people in Carpool Tunnel, like Danny's so good at drums, and Brad's so good at guitar, and Ben's so good at singing and writing, and I wasn't even a bassist, but I filled in the hole of bassist, and now I know and love the bass just as much as I know and love guitar and drums and all those other instruments. Like it's like we all fill in the holes of each other's like musicianship and composition, all like wherever I feel like I'm weakest, like they always lift me up.
Spencer, I know you say that you played in other bands before. Do you feel like other bands you played in opposed to Carpool Tunnel, do you feel like there wasn't that same, all these puzzle pieces fitting into the same bigger picture?
I think that the bands that I played in before were not very serious. They weren't like built upon like artistic expression and the same kind of ideals that Carpool Tunnel is built on. I think, at the time we were all very young and just kind of finding our own voices and sounds and stuff like that. And it's like we were just playing and practicing and learning songs that other people had written. Like I grew up going to School of Rock, which is that it's literally the movie. Like I lived the movie.
One of my favorite movies.
Yeah, I had my own Jack Black, who taught me how to sing and play guitar and like played with a bunch of different kids, so I got a taste of like all the dynamics of a band, like before being in a band. Like Carpool is like my first band. Like if I'm gonna be serious about it, Carpool is my first band, my first like real effort into creating a musical project that I feel like I had time and energy invested, and it's going to go somewhere. Before that, it wasn't really like, oh, I'm doing this because I love playing music, and it's just a fun hobby for me to like pass time and stuff like that. It was what it was like before. But it was like, it really was, as soon as I met Ben and as soon as I met Brad and Danny, it was like, this is really sick. Like I want to do more of this. And I was in school at the time doing like audio engineering and stuff like that. But like when I was there, I was like, this really isn't what I want to be working on. And then when I met them, it was like, oh yeah, this is it. Like this is what I was looking for. Like school couldn't have provided me the experience and the knowledge that I've gained just by going out and freaking doing it. Like there's I have a lot of friends who go to San Jose State music department, and I was talking with them the other day, and they were saying like they felt like they were so far behind, even though like they're amazing musicians. They're mind-blowing musicians, but just because they hadn't started doing it, they felt like they were behind in ways that, like, like they don't know about contracts or like certain deals and like show cuts and all these very, very specific business details that we just kind of learned about as we started playing shows and going out and doing it. Like so many things, and like all these things kind of rotating around the musical mind that like can seem a little mind numbing, but at the same time is necessary.
Mm-hmm.
What did you want to do with that degree originally? The one you were going to for San Jose State for the you said it was audio engineering, correct?
Yeah, it was like an audio engineering and audio design based school in it was like a little private college in San Jose, in like the Aptos area. Or not Aptos, that's Santa Cruz, in I guess Milpitas.
Yeah, I think so.
Isn't
yeah.
Milpitas more like Oakland, or is it?
I don't remember exactly what city it's in technically.
Or maybe
Milpitas
it's
is
Mountain,
weird. It's like a
maybe it's Mountain View.
yeah, I think
Milpitas is like East San Jose.
yeah. Because Mountain View is like San Jose. It's hard.
It's
that
on the
way.
way to San Mateo. On the
Yeah,
way to
there you
San.
go.
Yeah, I was going there, and it was like, I went to high school in Carlsbad
Mhm.
down in San Diego, like North County, San Diego, and it was like a tech school. So like I had a good background in like engineering and technology, and like could wrap my brain around various like technological things. And it really rounded me out in my like right brain. But the thing that I had going for me was I was doing School of Rock at the same time I was doing a tech school. So like both of those things kind of like combined into me. And then I went to go do engineering because they didn't really have any audio engineering. And I was doing all this music stuff. I was like, these are the two things that I'm good at. I'm going to go find a way to make them meet. Right. It was audio engineering. Like, and so I went to an audio engineering school, and, I got there, and it didn't really have the resources that I wanted. And the track was so slow. And it felt like by the time I had done a year of school there, I could have been so much further along had I just been like recording and doing it and releasing things myself, and just like focusing on moving in industry where it's like, it seems like, action speaks louder than textbooks, like, so I went with Carpool, and Carpool has done a lot for me, particularly, where I would say not necessarily that you shouldn't go to school for engineering, because when you're doing engineering and you're doing engineering like by yourself, like, and that's like what you want to do is just engineering, then it's like super important, like, to know all the tricks of the trade. But if you're doing music and you also want to know engineering, it's all creative expression. Like, it's all whether or not you like this thing here or that thing there. And it's not really like, oh, does my mix sound good? Like, and it's like, no, it sounds good to me, so I like it, so it's done. It's like, I'm like, think about like, I'll put a point of reference for like somebody like Tame Impala. Like, if you look at like all his records, they're all self-done, self-produced, and self-recorded. It's not necessarily like they are amazing albums, but they're like just him, and he's comfortable with his own style, like, and him comfortable with his own like production. Like, it's not him like trying to learn how to write and manufacture a pop song. Like, that's what you could do if you went to school, but I'm sure that information's out there online too. So it's like, pick up your favorite things, do what you want with them, and like move forward with your own personal niche.
Some people, I feel like the information is just already in. I feel like some people just have it.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Do you think
no?
Do you think if you never met Carpool, you would have dropped audio engineering in school to pursue music by yourself, or try to find another project?
I would have definitely found another project. I don't think there would have been a point in my career where I would have gone and done anything like by myself before having a project. I think it's really important to learn the dynamics in a group setting before venturing into doing stuff on your own, because I feel like one, it helps you learn how to write with others, and it helps you like learn how to there's so many things that like are invaluable lessons that I've learned just by working with Carpool. Like you cannot trade experience for like watching a video or something on YouTube about how to do this or that. It's another game.
Another thing is too, I feel like you have to mess up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I feel like when you're sitting in your room watching YouTube videos, or either, oh, how do I seem confident on stage? How do I play whatever? Just do anything really. I feel like when you're sitting in your room researching it by yourself, opposed to actually going out and doing it, you have no chance to mess up. And until you mess up, you're not going to want it. You're not going to have the extreme drive to get better as you would have before.
Yeah, and I mean we do a lot of things that like I feel like a lot of other bands don't do. Like we do this thing right before every show where we sit around in a circle and we talk about what we want to express or what we pick a single word and what that word means, and then like we go around in a circle like before we perform, and then we do like a deep breathing kind of exercise to really like level each other out and be like together and there for each other. And then we go out on stage and we bring that energy of those words and those meanings and those things that we were thinking about, and really just all comes out there. And it's like, I don't know if this is for everybody, like, because a lot of bands don't necessarily like have that pre-powwow show energy, or if they do, like maybe it's not the same way, but like I feel like that's what really helps us stay tight together. And it's like you don't really have that from a video.
That's beautiful, man. I think that's so beautiful. Do you still get nervous before you play, do you think?
Oh yeah.
Every time. It never goes away. You eventually you'll learn to live with it.
Yeah.
And having the four of us together, like, and doing that deep breathing exercises, like it basically lets all of us know that we're all feeling that exact same thing. And it's like, oh, it's about to happen. Like, yes, it's about to happen. I mean, like it's really about to happen. It's like, no, do another. Okay, now we go.
And I can see how that would help. I feel like sometimes all it takes is you being able to internalize the fact that somebody else is feeling the same thing that you are, to make you not feel so alienated.
Oh, absolutely.
I saw this video the other day. It's kind of off topic, but I saw this video of John Mayer, and he was talking. He was just riffing over his guitar, and he was talking, and he said something that stuck with me. And I think it's pretty related. It's related to that. I think it sticks to it. He said, "There's the way it is, and there's the way that it seems, and I'm willing to bet that the majority of your problems are based in the way that it seems." And I feel like that's very relevant to playing a show. Nobody who's there in the audience is going to sit there and they're looking up and I would imagine everything that you think in your head that could possibly go wrong, nobody in the audience is thinking about that.
They only know that something's wrong if you let them know that something's wrong. Like if even like this is a fun thing that happened once. Was can't remember, remind me if this was actually Danny or not, but I can't remember if we had a show that had like a power outage, and like Danny just immediately, or somebody just immediately grabbed it and started doing a drum solo and like continuing the show. Like it was an impromptu drum solo. Was this a Carpool show? I can't remember.
Are you referring to like the show that we had in the Davis basement?
Did the power go out there?
I don't know. My amp wasn't working. Like
that show was a nightmare in and of itself. Like it was a great show. It was a great show, but it was also a nightmare.
I had the guy that was holding my mic, the mic cable into my mic, because that was the only way I could sing and you could hear my voice.
Yeah. And but like the power had gone out probably at a different show, not with Carpool, but my drummer just picked it up and started doing a drum solo, and then the power came back on, and then we boom went into the rest of the song. And it was just like having that, like everybody was like, that was so sick. Like, how did they do that? Like, it was totally unplanned. And it was like, at the same time, like, it could have been like, oh, stop the show. Like, if you stop the show and let them know that this is not a part of the show, then it's like you let them in, or it's like you're exposing yourself a little bit, right? But and then as soon as like the power came back on, we went back into the song, and it's like nobody even knew that wasn't a part of the song. Like, it was an original song, so it was like,
how would they know?
exactly.
Wait, so just so I'm understanding what you mean, so the power went out, all the amps cut off, so you can't hear, like, you can't hear a bass,
Amps,
can't hear any
like,
guitar.
Nope,
So,
none of it. None
so
of
your
it.
drummer just solos.
Yep, solos, and then the power came back on maybe like 45 seconds after, right? It took like a little 45-second solo, and then we went right back into the song.
That's genius.
Yeah,
That's
it
like
was
a true Neil Peart moment.
exactly.
I just gotta roll with it, you know?
Yeah, that's crazy to me. Have you guys had, as a band, have you guys had any moments like not similar to that, but any moments where you were playing a venue and something went wrong?
Oh yeah.
I remember Brad and Ben break strings, so it's like
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of the times they'll have to, if they have a written part that needs a certain string, it's like all of a sudden they have to like split second transpose it to another string and like start playing it over there, or the solo changes completely and like the whole thing is just made up. And then, or like one time I remember I was playing, I think I was playing like a cover of a song. I remember breaking a bass string at a show. I can't remember what it was, but I think I was playing Forget My Name with like a slap bass. And I think
I was just gonna say that makes sense because that song has some thick bass lines.
Yeah, I think I broke the low E string on a show once. It was really gnarly. So it was like I didn't have that boom, boom, like low note to go with, so I like had to like transpose it up an octave and like had to figure that out like all split second.
The bass in that song.
One of the
No, go ahead. You're good.
Oh, you go.
No, go.
No,
you go.
Zoom's always like tough. You start to cut each other out.
Seriously, go ahead. You're good. You're good, bro.
I was gonna say like one of the also another like thing that happened is one of the biggest shows we ever played was at the Observatory main stage in Santa Ana. And we were like all like, you know, trying to look sharp because it was like one of our big shows, and we're like, you know, so we're all like dressed up nice, and I had like these dress shoes on, and Michael was getting all excited and had water bottles and was like splashing water all over the stage. And while we were playing impressions, like my dress shoes like slipped on the water and I fell flat on my face, like in the middle of the song with my guitar, like my strap like hit the ground and I like instantly popped back up and went to the mic and started singing. And then you just gotta like, it's one of those things where you just gotta brush it off, you know? You're like, oh, shit, in front of 1,000 people.
What song was that? What song was that?
Oh, it was Impressions.
Was it really? I was spaced out. Yeah. I did not know. See, it was, I was playing with Ben. I didn't know. I was on stage. So if you don't let
so
them
fast,
like you don't even realize that it happened.
Yeah, that's so funny. You look like you slipped and fell on your face.
I did. Yeah, right on my face with my guitar. Like my guitar hit the ground too. I don't know how I didn't break the guitar.
Those moments, I imagine, although I would imagine in the moment, you probably feel absolutely, it probably feels worse than it is, but I bet in hindsight, those are the moments you'll remember.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah, that's a great story. Let's talk about tarot cards. That song on the album, I'm curious where the inspiration for that came. Are you guys really into tarot cards?
Not, I mean, I have a deck of tarot cards. I think I don't, Spencer, do you have a deck? I know Brad has a deck. I think Danny has one too. I mean, we're like not super into them, but I think like Brad just kind of came to practice one day and was like, hey, we should like write a song about like why tarot cards just like always like seem to be so true. And I like kind of tied the idea into like what the chorus is, like why it, you know, has it been so long, like has it done you wrong kind of thing. Like they're kind of questions like you kind of ask yourself when you're getting a tarot reading. So I think that's kind of where like the whole theme of the song came from.
The interesting part about that song is that it's had like 7 or 8 different renditions of the same like song that like transformed like a billion times, and every time we come back to an earlier version of that song, it springs a new song. So it's like tarot cards kind of have that similar thing where it's like they're super interpretive, and meanings change and keeps changing.
How did all those versions come about? Was there like originally you guys just kind of fell out of love with, or what?
It just didn't fit exactly what the vibe we wanted for the song. But it's like the song, those ones that were the original versions, I still love those songs, and I feel like eventually those songs are going to become a song too, so like we always come back to it. But then we come back to it like, oh, let's finally revisit this and relearn it, and then we do, and then it's like, oh, and then it turned into another thing, and this other thing is kind of better, so we're gonna go with that one.
I feel like the theme of tarot cards also kind of, as everything else we've said today, also circles back to how you guys met.
Yep.
Another thing I wanted to ask you about, the video for Dreaming Still. I've probably watched it a million times at this point. Where'd the Full House idea come from? Was it just because you guys live in SF, or was there like a specific time where you're like, oh, let's make a Full House video?
We're not, the funny thing is we're not even like that big of Full House fans. I think it's just because I think it's because we live in San Francisco. Like it showed off like kind of basically like, you know, where we live and like what we represent. And I think like we thought Dreaming Still kind of embodied that energy of like kind of what that video and the intro of that show kind of embodies. And yeah, we had fun with it. It was like such a great time. Like it was a little like less serious than like our first music video we came out with, Empty Faces, and we just wanted something that was lighthearted.
Moving to the city and just living in general together, how much did that change things for you guys?
Revolutionized our relationships with each other, taught us how to take care of ourselves and take care of each other, and also taught us how to set like where each other's like boundaries are. Like it helped us like relate to each other, and it like united us in a way in our music that like we didn't really have before.
Was that all of your first times living by yourself?
It was not mine. I had lived in an apartment like for maybe 6 months, maybe a year before. But it wasn't like I had learned how to take care of myself or like learned how to function as an individual. So like I still was very like, you know, not self-sufficient to say the least.
Yeah, it was Brad and Danny's first time. I moved out of the house when I was 17 actually. So I had already been living on my own for like 3 years.
That's interesting. How old were you? You two were older than Brad and Danny when you guys got together originally, right?
Yeah, we're the older two of the bunch.
Because Brad was young, right?
Yeah, I think he was 17 when we first met him.
Yeah, and Danny was 17 when we moved into the band house.
So he was even younger than that when you met.
Yes. Yep.
That's crazy.
I bought all the alcohol.
hey, bleep that.
All right, that part's getting cut out. Bleep. He bought all the instruments. That's cool. We'll do a voiceover. That's hilarious. Closer. When you guys wrote that song originally, was that one meant like, okay, when you were writing it, was the idea we want this to be the final song in the album? Because to me, it sounds so much like an outro that the name Closer is like the only thing appropriate.
Yeah, that's exactly why we made it that. I mean, we kind of wrote it and we're like, this definitely is the last song of the record. Like, we kind of knew it when it came to be. Yeah, we just kind of wanted like the double meaning of like closer and closer, you know?
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of like where the idea came. And it like also ties into the whole flower metaphor too. So
yeah, it was the way that song came about was very, very like different than all the other tracks, where I feel like, you know, Better Now came from like all of us kind of just diving into it at the same time, and Closer came about by like Ben wanted like we had that intro. We wanted to start from a very, very soft place, like almost like all right, hey, here we go. Like, and then we wanted to have that like soft, sentimental, like kind of part. And then we wanted the chorus to embody the Carpool Tunnel big energy, which is like big distorted guitars, big kind of almost like orchestral like guitar sentiments like happening, where it's like Brad's kind of weaving a line between all of us doing like chords and rhythm structure, and then like the ending, or like the, I guess the bridge, you want to call it, like came from like a bass line that I had written and to Ben's chords. Like Ben had these chords and he was like, what if we did this motion? And I was like, well, how can I connect the dots? And then it was like, all of a sudden it's like, whoa, like, and it like expanded into this idea. And then Brad just jumped in and started like feeding the energy of the bass line, and Danny kept the time like together. And then it's like, and then we went back into the chorus, and it just kind of all just happened. Like it like really was just like, again, letting go, like, and
Natural.
it kind of came naturally.
I can hear that in the hook for sure. And I feel like the hook does a really good job of wrapping up the themes on the record as well.
Yeah.
Because that I would say that the hook on that song is probably my favorite one on the album. Because I really do feel like it's probably the most, would you guys say it's one of the more direct moments on the album? Because I feel like it is, opposed to a lot of the other things you say, it is very single, like you say it to mean it, if you know what I mean. You know what I'm trying to say?
Totally. Yeah.
Definitely.
There's a lot of the stuff on the album I know that Ben really likes to do these like artistic embellishments and beat around the bush, kind of like leave things open-ended for interpretation, because then it allows more people to find exactly what they're looking for in a song. But I remember writing, or at least being a part of the lyrical process for that last song, and like being like very, very like, it needs to be like this message, like how do we convey this thing? And then we found the phrase that went with the idea of like a flower you too shall bloom. And like there was actually another part of that song, like the there's a line that I still miss, that was like a part of it that we took out in pre-production. Do you remember that, Ben? The
to be honest, I don't.
It was a look in the mirror is so much clearer in the sun.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was like there was like a little predicate to the chorus that we had that like was really, really cool, but it just didn't really fit structurally in the song, so we took it out. But like the song had a lot of other little details in there that we just kind of refined and took it into play.
Like a closing statement.
Yeah, pretty much. You have your thesis statement, which is learning to listen, and your like conclusion paragraph, which is your closing.
And then everything in the middle is growing up.
Yep.
That's cool. Was it the last song you guys wrote in the writing process?
No. Dreaming Still was actually the last song we wrote in the process.
Oh, okay.
And that song came about, again, like a whirlwind through our rehearsal space, which was Ben's living room at the time. And it just like after pre-production, we came back, we were like, we need another song. And it just happened.
How many rehearsal spaces did you guys like have? Like over the course of the,
I wouldn't even call them rehearsal space. It was just more like places in our house.
Yeah.
Rooms.
Yeah, pretty much. Now we have an actual rehearsal space, so it's like it's a little more professional, but like we're still climbing that, finding our comfortable space.
Is that at your house?
What? Oh, the new one now.
Do you guys, that's interesting. Did you guys find it difficult to work and kind of record your music? No, I wouldn't say record, but work on your music and write in the same place that you live? Because I feel like a lot of people have issue with doing what they do professionally in the same place they live.
It wasn't necessarily a barrier, but it definitely was a boundary that most people would have set if it was their like work. You know, like a lot of
Definitely.
people are dealing with the fact that like they're in COVID and now their work environment is now
Spouse.
their, you know, their house, their home environment. Like this is my studio space and like all my instruments are all over my wall and my surfboard's right there. And that's my bed right there. It's like, this is, I go to school and I take classes and I do things directly from my room here in San Francisco. And it's like, when you're that was like when we were living together, we didn't really have the luxury of going out and having a rehearsal space, so it was like we just kind of made do with what we had.
Yeah, that makes sense. How do you guys feel that you've grown as individuals since you met each other? Like since you, because I know you've been together for such a long time at this point. What major differences do you feel in yourselves now opposed to when you first met?
Gosh, I would say a decent amount, and I think we've kind of helped each other grow as individuals. Just kind of like also discovering like what we want as musicians and as a band, and um, I don't, I don't know. It's tough, you know. It's like I want to I want to say we've all kind of had our own journeys, but helped each other along the way. We're very like, I think a great thing about our band is that like we're very open when it comes to communication and talking about our feelings, and we recognize when one of us, you know, seems down or is struggling through something, and we've always helped each other. So
Yeah.
that's something we value a lot as a band too, and we do that like, and it shows in our music too, I think.
Yeah. I mean, Ben, you've grown so much as like a leader, you know, in the band, just being the oldest one of all of us. Like, I feel like a lot of the times, like when we're stuck at a major decision or like a major like turning point or like fork in a road, it's like you've always got that like the right idea, like the right mentality and stuff like that. So it's like each of us has kind of grown more into the person and people that we want to be. And you're right, yeah, a lot of the times when we're all struggling, like we're always there for each other. Like in another, you know, professional environment, you know, there's certain things that like wouldn't fly, like and it's like not being in that professional environment and instead being like in a room of like basically your brothers, like it changes so much about like
Mhm.
what is, you know, what we talk about, like what we can, you know, like it's less of a workplace and more of a home. You
Wow, that's
gotta, you gotta
beautiful.
you gotta keep your home tidy. You gotta make sure everything's, you know, good. Like,
You gotta check on everybody.
yeah,
Mhm.
That makes a
We're
absolutely.
lot of
family,
sense.
that's for sure.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful, man. Last thing I want to ask you, as a band or as individuals, what do you guys want your message to be to people who want to do just what you do?
Wow, I mean, that's something we've always wanted to like encourage other people to do, and that's what we want to do with our music. um we just want to show people that like you can do what you love, and you don't have to like set a limitation on yourself, you know. Like when we formed the band as Carpool Tunnel, like we had no idea how far like we were really going to be able to go with it. I mean, we even all each got matching tattoos when we hit like 10,000 plays on our first song, and that was like such a monumental like goal for us. And it's just so surreal to even be able to have 500,000 plays on a song. I mean, that's just like mind blowing to me, and like the amount of people that listen to our music, like we're just like so grateful for, and like we just want to spread positivity through our music. Like that's the biggest thing. And you know, we just write music that's reflective of like the world that we're living in and what we experience, and we can just only hope that like that experience that we're writing music about can also relate to others, and like also like give them the message that like you can also do this with what you love and in your own style and be who you are. And that's like a huge thing about what Bloom is all about too, is coming of age and realizing that you're a beautiful flower, and like even on a cloudy day, like you know, like you a beautiful flower in itself can still be dull, you know, and it can still feel down at times, but in the grander scheme of things, like it's still a beautiful flower, and it's going to have its bad days and it's going to have its good days. And like that flower can do whatever it wants to do, and just like live life and love it and love the entire journey the whole way through. So
That's beautiful, man. Spencer, what about you? What do you think your message as a musician to pass on to somebody would be?
Every day you kind of set your bar, and the next day exceed it. Like, just do one thing that you might be a little bit like unfamiliar with or uncomfortable with, and just take a whack at it. Like I have a keyboard, to like a bass, a guitar, acoustic guitar, and I don't even surf all that much, but these are all things that I've got my hands into all of them. I've got speakers, production, like I've got, you know, a little interface and like a little electronic drum kit. And I've found my way like through like Facebook Marketplace and just finding things for cheap and like putting my whole like space together. And it's like each day I'm putting in a little bit of time and a little bit of energy and a little bit of effort into each one of them, and like learning what it is I like about each of the instruments and growing into them. And I think there was I can't remember the exact saying, but it was I can't remember it. I will. But it was about being like a multi-instrumentalist, and like is sometimes better than focusing all in on one. Like, I know you can be like the best drummer in the world, but like you set your own limitations. It's like you can be drum and play guitar and play bass and play drums and do it all if you really, really want to, if you really have the mindset to do it. Like, and you know, every time it's like another day comes around, and you just got to put yourself into a position to like just be growing and be learning, and sit down and practice something like once a day. Like, I'll practice piano once a day, guitar once a day, bass once a day, drums once a day. I can just sit down and do it for even like 20 minutes.
I think it's a great idea.
Keep setting the bar and keep constantly like doing new.
To have your feet in as many pools as possible.
Yeah, and the thing is it's like you can't really compare yourself to other people. Like, let's say somebody, you know, drops a single and it's like really well produced and it's really, really good, but like, you know, they've been pursuing me, and then it blows up and immediately they're this big like overnight success. It's like that really wasn't an overnight success, because they had to go through so many barriers and so many trials in their own life to get to that point. And, you know, they might have put in a bunch of resources in ways that you know can't even you know. It's like a lot of the times, like I've heard horror stories about people doing things like and having big like songs and successes, and then being in debt for like their success for like 10 to 20 years after things happen. So it's like you got to take a step back and think like gratification can be instant, but a lot of the times it's almost better that you delay it. It's always better that you delay it, because the faster you come up, the faster you come down. And like if your life and your music is a gradual ascent, right, it'll just be always ascending, because you'll be always learning and always growing.
And you have to grow every day.
Yeah, exactly.
Never stop learning.
Every day will be better than the next.
That's beautiful, man. All right, guys, this has been an amazing conversation. I've had a lot of fun. I think this is a great, what, almost like 70, 80 minutes we put in here.
Yeah, hell yeah.
This is a lot of fun, guys. I really appreciate you sitting down with me and having this conversation.
Absolutely. We appreciate you coming to talk to us.
All right, guys, tell everybody where to find your music, your social links, whatever. Where can everybody find you?
We're Carpool Tunnel Band on Instagram. Carpool Tunnel on Spotify. We're on Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp, whatever you listen to music to on, and we're on it. So you'll find us pretty much everywhere.
All right. And well, thank you guys so much for sitting down with me. It's a great conversation. I hope to see you live soon, hopefully, or come hang out with you. It's been a good conversation, guys.
Absolutely.
All right,
guys. Have a good one.
Thanks.
See
you guys.
Bye.
Peace and love. Ringo Starr.